What's up, Walking Dead friends and family? It's Brian Castrillo, and I just seen The Walking Dead episode 12, The Lucky Ones. Excellent episode. I think this is setting up a lot of stuff that is going to happen in these upcoming episodes. And we're going to look back on this episode as a kind of a pivotal one as to what's going on. Now, in the beginning, we're kind of getting a backstory to Max, Stephanie. Of course, Max was actually, or Stephanie was the name of Maxine's mother, as she found out. And this is kind of taken off from the last episode, and Eugene kind of blows her off. He's upset and he's mad, and I get it. And then we see Maxine, talking to Pamela Milton, and the key thing that I took away from that, well, outside of when she's asked her, is there anything else I can get you? And she's like, maybe a day without my son being an asshole. But one thing that she kind of said that was kind of interesting is that she was going to cut off his line of credit, which I'm sure that's going to get back to him, and he's going to be upset about that. This could be what is that snowball effect or domino effect that ends up having him possibly kill one of our family. Kind of in the comics it was Rick Grimes, but of course it's going to be played differently, and I think that is going to be a pivotal moment as to who may die. Maybe Eugene might get that moment. I don't know, but him losing his line of credit is going to be big, where it's going to start getting him upset. Now then we see Pamela and Lance and showing, and with of course Daryl and Mercer, and they're all heading off to go to Alexandria. And this is sort of in the past, I believe, because it's showing as to what happened, as to why we saw that ending scene where Daryl shows up to Hilltop, and she's like, it didn't have to go this way. But this is kind of going in the past. We learn about why this is happening, and it's kind of interesting when they get there. Pamela, actually Aaron decides to give Pamela a tour. He's talking about how this was a self-sustaining community. They had solar panels, a crop system, water, and they learned all these plans from Maggie. And of course, Maggie, we know, got those plans from Georgie. Now, I have always kind of felt this. Now, I got a little bit wrong where I thought she could be the Pope, Georgie, but I still believe that she is connected to the CRM, which is kind of my initial thing. Now, I said we will see Georgie again, and I do believe that is going to happen. But those plans came back into play in this episode because those are what Maggie learned, and she taught, Alexandria as well as the Oceanside. And I feel like Georgie is a similar character to what Jadis was prior to her getting her role, as we learned in World Beyond. But I digress. Some of the interesting scenes we see in there is we learn that Pamela actually knows Deanna Monroe, and she talked about how they pass each other in philanthropy circles, and this whole episode was kind of showing a contrast between her and Deanna and how they kind of rule. Now, I remember how Deanna was trying to get back to Ohio. She was talking to Daryl, and Daryl's talking about how Deanna built this place. They brought her in, and she's like, and she seems kind of surprised at Daryl because he said that he admired her. And I don't think many people admire Pamela Milton back in the Commonwealth, but we're kind of seeing sort of a difference between their two styles of leadership. And as she's as she's talking, a walker comes in there. Daryl goes out to kill it. After Mercer said, he was going to do it. And she asked Aaron, how did Pamela die? And she said Aaron said she was bitten. And I think Pamela sees that there wasn't a lot of safety there, but she doesn't see Alexandria as a asset to the Commonwealth. So she's not really as invested with them by themselves. And that's where she says, I've seen enough. Now, interestingly, you also see Mercer and Daryl talk, and I believe there's a budding bromance happening here. I mentioned that in one of my character profiles, but he seems surprised, but also it's sort of a show. He kind of is respecting him maybe a little bit more, that Daryl was one of the leaders of their communities. And that probably put him a notch as far as how Mercer views him, a little bit up. Then we see, Ezekiel, he's getting treatment from Tommy, and he learns that he moved up all the way to number one, and Jerry is excited for him. But this is where we really see Ezekiel's character. He's such a great guy, and he seems concerned, like, was I moved up? Nobody knows me here. That doesn't make sense. And he's talking. He's seen how people are suffering, and this is highlighted with a conversation later with Carol. How Ezekiel was, trouble. How he's basically troubled that he moved up ahead of other people who are suffering. It doesn't seem fair to him. And this is that leader that we've always known of Ezekiel. Then we see Pamela and Lance at Oceanside, and this was a really beautiful shot. You see Pamela dipping her toes in there. You can see, she's manicured. Her feet look really nice, but it's just like her kind of remembering what the world was like prior to, everything going back. But it was kind of a sort of a surreal moment as she's looking out into the water. But she talks to Rachel, and I think this is what she wants Oceanside, a lot, because that's a port where they can, deliver stuff up through the water. Of course, there's fishing. I believe Oceanside has the most value to the Commonwealth, but Rachel tells her, how she had a pact with Maggie, and she was told by Maggie that she did not agree to be with them. So if Maggie's not on board, then Oceanside's out. So that was kind of interesting. And then you see Lance and Aaron talking along the way up, because it looks like they're going back to Hilltop rather to see Maggie, and he's talking about how this needs to work, and we're in the same boat, and I care about Alexandria, and I want to make this happen. Of course, Aaron seems very skeptical of Lance's feelings towards Alexandria, because he's been there basically since the beginning. And then they bump into Maggie, and they're killing some walkers, and they're watching her pretty much take them out by herself with her people, and I think they recognize the strength of leadership that she is. And then that they decide, or Lance comes up and said, while Aaron and Daryl and Maggie are talking, and this one was one thing that I did get wrong, because in the trailer Maggie had said, why do you trust these people? And I said this possibly could be Ezekiel talking to, but it was actually Daryl. And she's, asking, why do you trust these people? And Daryl's basically like saying, who said I ever did, But then you see Lance coming up, and he's saying, well, Pamela said we should all go on a hunting trip. So they go on, and you see Pamela say to them, you guys are too loud. And then she suggests that her and Maggie go off together where she can talk to her by herself, and she's trying to talk to her. And kind of one of the interesting things that was said during this was that they're talking about their different leadership styles, and she's mentioning how Maggie asked her, how does that, basically talking about her status in there, how she has nice things and the rest of the people don't see that. And Pamela's basically telling her, well, the people need something to look up to see. And Maggie says, well, I choose to lead I want people to look up to me by what I do and how I protect them and how I basically lead by example. And and you're seeing a different contrast of leadership between Maggie and Pamela. I'm checking my notes back and forth because there's a lot of really cool stuff going on in this episode. And one of the things that she says is, the world belongs to us, not the dead. And that kind of reminded me of Rick Grimes a little bit in one of his speeches. Let's see, Carrot. And then we see Carol stops by at Ezekiel's place, and this was kind of interesting, basically for the fact that Ezekiel basically figured out that that Carol was behind that, and he says, why did you do this? She mentions that she got a favor from Lance owed her a favor, and he saw this as cheating, and this kind of enforces his character and how he just feels bad about this. And I kind of have a feeling that later down the road, we're going to see who that affected, who got bumped down, so Ezekiel can go up, and Ezekiel may see this see this person die, and it may be a really emotional scene later on down the road. But I do want to bring up back to when he found out that he was having surgery, and he said, no pineapple on pizza. That that doesn't make sense. And I'm here to say that pineapple on pizza is delicious. I don't care what anybody says, because Hawaiian pizza is amazing. And I don't know how people can be complaining about pineapple on pizza when people put sardines on pizza. That smells nasty. I delivered pizza. That smells like straight garbage. So anyway, but yes, pineapple does belong on pizza, but I just had to say that. Then they're talking about the different class structure. We're back to Maggie and Pamela, and this whole episode is basically you're getting to see the differences of the different class structures, and how different people in our community versus the Commonwealth versus past communities, and how they view it. And I think this is setting up to really highlight the class structure within the Commonwealth, and we're going to see who's really behind her. Pamela is surprised that people would admire somebody for who I think she feels that, like, Deanna Monroe didn't do much. I mean, she's where Pamela has this huge community. She has soldiers at her beck and call, and she has ice cream, and she feels that should be acknowledged a lot more. Really cool scene was when Eugene is sitting by the lake. Absolutely gorgeous view, and you see someone painting him in the background. I don't know if Eugene knew that intentionally, but he did look back at her. But then Rosita comes up, and they're talking about basically what's going on with Eugene, and you see, and she says, just tell me, and he tells her that basically the whole Stephanie thing was a sham. But the big thing to take out of this moment is you can really see how the apocalypse has taken a toll on Eugene. You see the gray hairs, you see the stress in his face. But when they hug, that you can feel Eugene maybe possibly coming a little bit back to himself and who he was. I think that conversation with Rosita was very important for his psyche going forward. Now we're back at the hilltop. You see all these soldiers that they're helping fix the place. They're giving out food. They come back with from their hunting trip a couple birds. So the Commonwealth is really kind of putting on a show of force to show how what they can do. And they're again back on the budding bromance with Mercer and Daryl. And two things that kind of are popping in my head about this is that he says Mercer said to Daryl, someone thought it would be good for appearances if you're basically not in uniform when you come here. Who is that someone? Now, even though Pamela is mostly in charge, I think Lance his role is kind of like he kind of runs the military aspect of it. I think he may have a little more control over that, even though Pamela's over him, has more power than him. He kind of runs that side of thing, and I think he uses that to his advantage, because I think but Lance does have a connection to the CRM. And the other thing he mentioned when he said Mercer basically says that not all communities can be lucky like Alexander or the Hilltop, And then Daryl remarks that, not all communities can be as lucky as the Commonwealth. And he basically says to Daryl that the Commonwealth ain't perfect. You got your role to play, and I got my role to play. And I think he's basically hinting at Daryl, that you can't really trust everything that you see. I do believe these two are going to become very close, and you're going to see the bromance kind of get stronger with them as time goes on. Again, back on that pizza scene, which is kind of follows that. Yes, pineapple pizza. At least Hawaiian though, because the flavors are delicious. So I'm sorry, King Ezekiel. This is where we're gonna have to part ways. I love you, but pineapple does work on pizza. Again, people put sardines on pizza, but now then we see Maggie and Lance talking, and for some reason Lance kind of reminded me a little bit of Gregory. Just more so like he's gonna throw it in your face, where Gregory's gonna kind of sneak around. But one of the things that Maggie asks him is like, what do you get all of this? Because you can see Maggie does not trust him. And he's basically kind of using Herschel and talking about the possibility of the different communities, and he's trying to pull her in, because she is key for Lance to get all these communities together, because Pamela wants the ocean side. Alexandria doesn't mean much, but I do think Pamela does want Hilltop. She likes Maggie. She likes the knowledge that she has, but again, Oceanside is key, and that's what Pamela sees. But Maggie, then we see some walkers that are coming, and I noticed one of them had some cans tied up. Now, granted, they had an alarm system set up where they had a line of cans that were tied up there, but this walker that was coming through, and nobody seemed to know this at least when they were killing him, but had a lot of had much stronger line that was tied, but it was tied around the walker. This isn't something that knot is not going to happen from a walker just casually bumping through some lines and getting tangled up a little bit. That walker was intentional, and I believe that it was sent through there to make it look, or make it basically create more walkers to come in, to kind of show, not so much, I don't think they wanted to hurt them, but to show that they can how good the Commonwealth soldiers are, as to show how good their protection is. I think Lance did this. I think he was the one definitely behind this. But Maggie later, after this, that the soldiers come in, they kill all the walkers. Mercer has them, mow them down, and Maggie sees this, and she's like, and she's thankful because, but she sees this show of protection, which I think was the point Lance wanted. He wanted to show what the Commonwealth had to offer, because Maggie was definitely not on board. But then there's a moment where Maggie sees Daryl taking orders from Mercer, basically telling him to fall in line, and Maggie knows Daryl all the way back from season 2. She's known him a long time. He is not the type that just takes orders, falls in line, like in that type of setting. And then we come to Pamela and Maggie, and Pamela wants Maggie. She wants the answer. Are you guys gonna be part of this deal? And she basically tells him no. And the thing that she mentions is that she brings up what Pamela said. Like you said, everything costs something. And this kind of reminds me of Negan, because when they first got to Alexandria, they learned that Negan's group, the Saviors, for the protection that they gave them, they had to give up half of their food, half of their medicine, basically half of everything. So Maggie wants to know, what is in this for Lance? What is in this for Pamela? What is in this for the Commonwealth? She doesn't want to have to give up the safety or, everything that they need to survive, because she figures something's coming down the line. This is where Maggie is very brilliant. She's smart. But that reminded me basically of Negan and the Saviors. And then you see Maxine visits. Well, I'm sorry. Eugene visits Maxine with some raspberry ice cream, and this was a kind of a beautiful moment between them. And he's apologizing, and they have a moment where she learns that he burnt his book, but then they start talking about it, and they're basically like almost mentally finishing each other's sentences. Um, and I think he found someone that he can really trust. And that's basically what's happening here. We're finding out who we're going to be able to trust in the end. Now then we see Lance talking with Pam, and Pamela basically says to him, you failed at this, but he's like, no, I want to I want to continue doing this. And she's basically throwing him under the bus, saying, I've known you for a long time. You're very ambitious. This is something you want to be, maybe a leader of one of these communities. This is all about power for you. And she basically threatens him and says that, if you want to do this, that's fine. But if your job back at the Commonwealth slips, there's going to be consequences to this. So I want you to keep that in mind. And Lance seems very upset. Again, I think Lance has a deal with the CRM. I don't think he likes Pamela. And he's trying to interweave and try and put himself in a higher position of power. Pamela has a lot. She's a different type of leader. She again believes in the class structure. That's how she maintains power. But I'm not sure that she has the same dealings with the CRM. But I think that's pretty much Lance. Then we see Aaron. Is walking up behind Lance. Now Lance he starts shooting into the air because he went off by himself in the woods, and it looks like he's trying to attract more walkers. And walkers come. I thought maybe this is something he was doing to bring a horde or something to them to make them pay. But he starts shooting them, and he I noticed that his aim is really good. Like he takes him out really quick, and then he just says, Aaron, you and we're going to rebuild the world back again. But this is after he lies to her when he says that Pamela is still, everything's good. Maggie's on board. We're all good. Pamela's ready to help Alexandria. But also some people left. Some of Maggie's people left her, and this was kind of troubling to Maggie. And I think that's what Lance is doing. He's trying to get people on his side, and he's basically playing mind games with everybody. But this episode's gonna be really key coming forward. But what did you guys think? Did you like this episode? What do you think about Lance's role? What's he's trying to do, and what do you think is coming up next? Tell me in the comments what you guys thought of it. And as always, I like to do a shout out in my reviews here. This one is no different. I'm throwing out to Christian Contreras. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. But you got to check out his YouTube page. He does some amazing TWD Universe edits. And honestly, his edits are perfect. The song choices he picks, the clips that he uses with the moments in the song, they're absolutely fantastic. Definitely check him out. His link, of course, is going to be in this description. I love you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Can't wait for next episode.